Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I'm bringing you my May reading wrap up, and whilst it was not quite as good as April, I think I'm back. Becca and her reading is back, which makes me so happy you don't even understand. So in April I read 16 books, which is so good. I did DNF one. I DNF'd The Widow Queen by Elżbieta Trinska. I've probably pronounced that wrong. I apologise. I DNF'd this. This book was kind of like, I don't want to say marketed because I didn't see the marketing for it, but it was like, I saw a lot saying it was like historical fantasy. So I thought, oh, okay, I don't mind historical if it's got fantasy elements. I read over 100 pages and there were no fantasy elements. So, oh no, sorry, I read 82 pages and there were no fantasy elements whatsoever. And I just couldn't get into it. So I just didn't. And I DNF'd it, which was a shame, but not going to force myself to read something I'm not enjoying. So yeah, one DNF this month. I'm hoping there's going to be at least 1 month this year that I don't DNF any books, but we'll see. We'll see. But I did complete 16 books. I read 5,573 pages and I listened to 41 hours of audiobooks. I've been really loving my audiobooks, especially like listening along with a physical book in front of me, which is great. So there were 9 audiobooks, 10 books physical and 4 ebooks. So yeah, and I had a pretty big mix of genres in May. So I read romance, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, mythology and mystery. So I think that's like my biggest range of genres in 1 month. But I had no 2 stars, no 3 stars, 7 4 stars and 9 5 stars. I am like so happy about the quality. I do think taking high fantasies out is helping because, you know, I don't want to read them right now. So yeah, anyway, let's just get stuck in with what I did read. So the first book I read was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. We was off to a very, very good start in May because this was a 5-star for me. I absolutely adored this book. It was so good. It really gave me like enemies. I don't see how contemporaries can be enemies to lovers, but this is like the contemporary equivalent of enemies to lovers. They have to basically use her sister and his brother's honeymoon because everyone but them gets ill at the wedding, and it's just they have to pretend to be the married couple, and it's just beautiful. I love it. So good. I love Olive and Ethan so much. Next up, I read Solo Leveling Volume 1, original story by Chugong. This was so good. I am 100% going to be getting volumes 2, 3 and 4, which are currently out, and then as the new volumes come out I'll be getting them. It was so good. I was really hooked. The artwork was amazing. It was very creepy at points, and I was so here for it, and the way it ended was just so good, and I need volume 2 soon. So this was a 5-star as well. Next up, we had Brotherhood by Mike Chen, which is a Star Wars canon novel, and I absolutely loved this. This again was a 5-star and I absolutely loved this. I said in my vlog about like where in the Star Wars timeline it's set, and it was just the way it was written was just so good. What with it felt like they hadn't been written any differently to how they are in the movies, but it was just a little additional as to something we don't get in the movies, and it was a really good bridge between the different stories we are seeing in the Star Wars visual universe. I think Mike Chen's done an amazing job with this, and I will definitely be reading more of Mike Chen's books if he does do more Star Wars books, which I do think I have heard is a possibility, but I am not 100%, so don't take my word on that. It could be rumours. But I really enjoyed this. I will leave the link to my blog post where I posted my review. I love it so much. And it was my first Star Wars novel, and it's definitely made me want to read more Star Wars novels, so I'm very happy with that. Next, I did my third reread, fourth read overall, of The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and I just love it more and more each time I read it, and I didn't think that was possible. Like, if I could give it a higher rating on Corepile, I would, but I physically can't. I just love everything about this book, so I'm not going to dwell on this because you've heard me gush about this so much, but once again, if you haven't read it, read it. The next book I read was The Cozy Cottage in Ireland by Julie Kaplan. This one was another one of her romantic escapes books, and I absolutely adored this one. I think it might be my second favourite of the ones I've read, and I've now read 6, I believe. 5 or 6. 5. I've read 5 of them, and I think this might be my second favourite. I really enjoyed this. The characters were great. The plot was great. The little, this one had like a... more of a the stakes were high, but not about the romance, about the actual plot, and I was here for it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm just obsessed with Julie Kaplan's books lately. Forgot to say, this one was a 4-star. Next up, we have Archboard Locks and the Bridge Between Worlds by Darren Shan. This is a very short first book in a series. I am not actually sure how many books are going to be in this series altogether. I do have the first 3. They are all pretty short, but that, I think that's kind of standard for Darren Shan, but I just never realised that before, which is really odd. But I really enjoyed this. This was a 4-star. This was, considering this was a very short book, this had a lot of world building without it being info dumpy, and I just love the world he's built in this book. Like, I love the worlds he builds in all of his books, but just this one was just so interesting, and I really enjoyed this. Next up, we have The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This one was a 4-star again. I feel like this one was very close to being a high 3-star though. Whilst I did enjoy it, it felt like there was so much going on because it is from the 2 points of view. It is from both Tiffy and Leon's points of view. And I just feel like we had a bit of drama with Tiffy and her ex-boyfriend, and then we had a bit of drama with Leon and his ex-girlfriend and his brother, and it felt like a bit too much. I feel like they should have just stuck with one. But I did enjoy the characters. I thought that the characters were a strong point for me. I really loved Tiffy and Leon's characters. And I did feel like they did work well together. So I didn't dislike it. I did really enjoy it. I don't know if I would reread it. And I am very skeptical about reading more of this author's writing. I do have another one of their books, which I will be reading because I own it. But I don't know how much I want to pick up other books by them that I don't already own. So we'll see, but I did enjoy it. It was a 4-star, so it wasn't bad. It was a good book, and I've heard good things and bad things about this, so I do think this is a very mixed book for people. Next up was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Oh my god, why did I not read this sooner? Has been my main thought process since finishing this. This was, of course, a 5-star. I'm so hyped to read Vengeful. Unfortunately, I can't read it next month because if you've seen my TBR, you'll know why I can't read it next month. But I'm going to be reading it in July. I really loved the characters in this. Now, I feel like you're not supposed to love the characters because they're not good people. Both Victor and Eli are very questionable characters, and I don't feel like you're supposed to like them. But I spent the first half of the book not knowing whether I liked Eli or Victor more because I liked them both. But then as the book went on, I was just like, Eli is starting to really annoy me. I don't like his attitude. And Victor was the Victor of my heart. Like, he owns my heart now. I love him. But I'm just so annoyed at myself for not reading this sooner. The writing was amazing. The world was amazing. I love this science behind extraordinaries and how they get their powers. It was just so well explained and I just love it. Next up, I read Spiritbound by Rochelle Mead. This is the penultimate book in the Vampire Academy series, and I am loving this series. This one was a 4-star, so it has followed the pattern with this series where it's gone 4, 5, 4, 5, 4. The intrigue was a bit higher on this one. I felt like once one thing had happened, which happens kind of early on, I wasn't really sure where it was going to go. So my intrigue was a lot higher because it was like unpredictable. I had literally no idea where it was going to go. And when the thing happened that happens, I was like, wait, what? What just happened? I didn't tab this one as much. You can't even see because it's yellow. I didn't tab this one as much because I was just getting so into reading that I just forgot, which is really bad. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. 4 stars, and I can't wait to finish the series next month. The next book I read was Under One Roof by Ali Hazelwood. It's going to be no surprise whatsoever that this was a 5-star for me. It's Ali Hazelwood. Like, it's literally, I've read 3 things by her now, and all 3 things have got all 10s on core pile because they're just perfect for me. I love them so much. I loved the characters in this. I love that it is the and they were roommates trope because it's one of my favourite tropes in fan fictions. And I just loved the story and the characters, and it made me literally giggle. Ali Hazelwood's books make me giggle like a little teenage fangirl. And I can say that because it's not offensive, because I was a teenage fangirl and I still act like one sometimes. I have no shame in that. But I literally did act like a teenage fangirl when reading this. And I have no shame. I loved it so much. And if you want to give Ali Hazelwood a go, but you're not sure because Love Hypothesis is super hyped, and obviously Love on the Brain is not out yet, this is only 112 pages. It's available on Kindle and it's available on Audible. I highly recommend giving this one a go if you want to just dip your toe in and see what her writing's like. It's amazing. I loved it, and I cannot wait for the next 2 novellas to come out because I'm going to devour them the moment I get them as well. Next up is We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. This one was purely on Gem from Bookish Gem's recommendation, and I'm so glad I listened to her and read this book. I have a 1-to-1 ratio with Grady Hendrix books at the moment where I've hated one and loved another. So this was sort of like a deciding factor on whether I would continue trying to read Grady Hendrix books. And I'm happy to report I actually loved this one. It was a 4-star. It was so good. I liked it on the same level I liked Horror Store, which was a genius book, and I loved it. So I'm really glad I loved this one. I'm definitely going to be giving more of his books a go and hoping that the one I didn't like stays on its own. And when I'm going to talk about it, because I really didn't like it, how the story went, and it was giving me big American Satan vibes, which, if you don't know what American Satan is, which not a lot of people do, it was not a well-known thing and a lot of people hated it, but it is a movie that has Andy Biersack from Black Veil Brides and Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria. It has a few other well-known names in there as well, like Boo Boo Stewart, and it was so good. And this gave me big American Satan vibes because it's all about making deals with devils and music industry and everything, and it was just, it was good. So it's a completely different story to American Satan. I just want to say that it's a completely different story, but it gave me the same vibes as that film did. So very much enjoyed this, and I'm really glad I did. Next up, we have The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I really enjoyed this book. It was a 4-star. It's sort of a borderline middle grade YA. Everywhere I looked for the age range for this was just both telling me middle grade and YA. So, and from reading it, I feel like it is sort of like on the cusp and it works for both. But I really enjoyed this. It's quite a short book, and it's in parts it could be a little bit heartwarming because it's just this boy who's called Nobody, and because he's nobody, and it's sad as well. It's sad, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the friendship he made pretty early on, and how everyone in the graveyard just looks out for him, and it was just really cute. And yeah. Next up, we have In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. I buddy read this with Jem, and we both really enjoyed this. This was a 5-star for me, and I am so hyped to read more by this author. I think they've solidified themselves as an auto-buy author because I loved it so much. Like, literally 5-star. My main thing about this is that this is set in a fantasy world. It's not very high fantasy, it's very low fantasy, but it's set in a fantasy world. It has magic, it has mer people, it has witches, mages, all that good stuff. But my favourite thing about this, which a lot of mainly fantasies don't do, the siblings in this are a really close-knit bunch. And it just warmed my heart, because a lot of time in fantasy, the siblings hate each other. There's always sibling rivalry. They hate each other. They're always trying to one-up each other. But in this, there's like little jokes about, oh, I did this, like, but it's never meant in, like, it's meant as a joke. It's banter between them. They're really close siblings. They get on really well. They look out for each other. They love each other. They support each other and are proud of each other and not afraid to say it. And I was just here for it because it's something you do not see very often. And I want more books with this, please. But if you put that aside, the story itself and Tal and Athlon was just so adorable. I loved them both so much, and I just loved the actual plot and the story behind the magic and the politics, and I was just like, I'm here for it so much. Next, we had Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which ripped my heart out. So this was a 4-star. It was very close to being a 5-star. However, I did like this a lot more than I liked Circe, and considering I loved Circe, that's saying a lot. I didn't really know much about these characters, whereas with Circe, I went into there kind of knowing a bit about Circe. I knew nothing. So I was completely unprepared. Even though I knew it was a sad ending, I wasn't sure what the sad ending was, and the ending broke me. Like, honestly, I was full on sobbing. Luckily, I'd finished work at that point because I was full on sobbing. It broke me. I loved it. I would definitely reread it, and I'm definitely going to be recommending this because it was just so good. Next, we have City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. This was, of course, a 5-star. I tabbed the crap out of it. But I was saying in my vlog about how this is actually, this and City of Heavenly Fire are my favourite in the Mortal Instruments series. I really enjoy the storyline of this one. It's so cleverly done in parts, and the characters have some of the characters have some really good development. I'm talking Izzy and Simon and Maya have pretty good development. Clary doesn't lose a stele in this one, but there's a reason why she doesn't lose it, which means she doesn't get a free pass on this one. But I really enjoy this one. I just want to hug Magnus. Magnus deserves all the love, and I love him so much. But yeah, I love this one. I don't know what else to say without spoiling anything, so I'm gonna stop. And then the final book that I read in the month of May was The Boy Band Murder Mystery by Ava Eldred, and my god, this was a 5-star. This was amazing. Oh my god. Right, so this boy band, there's 3 members of the band, and the best friend of the front man is killed. And who gets blamed but the front man, his best friend. And this girl and her fandom friends work to solve the mystery of who murdered the best friend because they do not believe it was Frankie. And going into this, you don't know whether it's going to turn up that it's going to be Frankie and their heart's going to be ripped out, or whether they are going to find out who the actual killer is. And I loved how they got from those points to figuring out what the actual like thing was. It's really hard to say without spoiling. But I thought it was genius, and it didn't feel, in parts it felt a little bit far-fetched, but that could just be my jealousy of a former boy band fangirl. I say former, like if One Direction was to get back together right now, I would be there. Preferably minus Liam. Anyway, yeah, so in parts it felt like I was reading a fanfic, which is not a bad thing. I want to say that it's not a bad thing. But the rest of it, the logic was just, it was high, because it mostly felt like this stuff could happen. Like, as a fangirl, you could initiate these things to happen, and it was really cleverly done. And I want to read more boy band related stuff by this author because it was so good. So yeah, this was a 5-star, and I'm very happy with that. And there was one line in particular where it makes a point of saying that fandom friends are real friends, and it just made my heart happy, because literally one of my best friends is someone I met through a One Direction Facebook group, and like, we don't talk about One Direction anymore, but we're still best friends. Like, we live in different countries, but we still manage to see each other every single year, apart from COVID. Obviously, COVID ruined that tradition. But, you know, like, fandom friends are real friends, and it made my heart happy having that in an actual YA book, because, like, looking back to when that was the time in my life, the amount of people I would have saying to me, oh yeah, but they're not your real friends. And it's like, none of my real friends are in my life anymore from that time, yet she is still a constant in my life, and she will continue to be a constant in my life. So yeah, turned into a little bit of a rant. I didn't mean it to, but it still stands. Like, it made me happy, and I loved it so much. I also am really glad, because those books that I read included both my NetGalley book and my ebook that I pulled out of my mugs, like in my May TBR. So yay. I did have a bit of a switch around with my readathon TBR, because 2 of the books I was going to read, I decided I didn't want to read this month, so I switched them around with other books that I was wanting to read. So yeah, I did technically complete my TBR, even though I changed it around. So yeah, but let me know in the comments below what the best book you read in May was. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.